Hey there, welcome to Her Truth Revealed, Unraveling Our Midlife Era. I'm your host, Wonderful Morrison. This space is for the woman who's done pretending, done hiding, and ready to step fully into her truth. Midlife isn't about fading into the background. It's a time where resilience lights the way and authenticity becomes the loudest voice in the room. In this season of our lives, we are more than just survivors. We are creators, revolutionaries, and unapologetic women rewriting the rules. I've been through my battles, rebuilding from loss, betrayal, and heartache. But here's the truth. Every challenge, every tear, and every setback has led me to this moment of profound transformation. Together, we're going to dive into raw, real conversations that shatter stereotypes, tackle the tough stuff, and embrace the powerful magic that is midlife. So, if you're ready to live this chapter with boldness and joy, hit subscribe. Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it and leave a review so we can keep this revolution going. Ladies, no more masks, no more apologies, just the truth of who we are. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to another episode of Her Truth Revealed, Unraveling Our Midlife Era. Now, thank you so much for being here. I'm your host, Wonderful Morrison. Yes, that's my birth name, not my stage name. And I'm bringing these conversations to the world for the purpose of women speaking the truth and learning from women who are spreading the gospel of how we have to have safe spaces to speak this truth in. Like, it's not just, oh, let's just puke it all out, because let's be honest, that doesn't work very well either, because we need spaces where we know that we're being heard, that we're being seen. And today I have a really special guest. She is an author and a leader in the arena of where trauma is not an ugly word. It is a word that has a lot of weight to it, that has a lot of purpose to it, and we need to speak our truth in that trauma to the core of what it is. So without further ado, please welcome Amie to the show. Hello there.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm really excited because I want you to tell us. Like, I almost like wanted to give the whole bio, but I always think that you have so much more of the experience in it, and you gave birth to it, and your
Yes.
purpose is to inspire us in being
Right.
who we are. So tell us, Amie, like, where a little bit of your history, just a little bit about you, and then let's go into the book, into your work, into all the goody things.
Sounds good. Thank you. So, to start with, my background, I am a trauma therapist, so a trauma psychotherapist, and I work with women primarily who are working through inner child trauma and how that relates today, I know it's like, yeah, it's so prevalent, really. It is. It's such a big deal. And there's so many women struggling with this and so many people struggling with this. But, the reason I love working with women is because there tends to be this heaviness that we all carry around needing to be perfect, needing to show up in a certain way, the people-pleasing aspects of things, the high criticism that tends to happen, right?
Are you talking about me right now? I feel like you're talking about me.
It happens to all of us. I completely get what you're saying. And I know this is where I come from too. This is my personality background also. So I'm with you. It's like this experience of, it's almost like we just can't get it right? There's just, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. Like, this is a shame story. It might be hidden. It might be hidden from all of us, right? But it's down there. It's in there somewhere. And it's causing chaos on some level in there. And so that shows up in different ways, right? In some ways, it shows up as women wanting to be ambitious or being achievers in some way. And that's a beautiful thing. However, if the idea behind it is, I want to be seen because I'm not enough, we're going to fall short Yes.
That right there. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the big piece. So I talk about 4 core wounds we carry, one of which is shame, the big one, right? Then there's abandonment. survival, and disempowerment. And we likely carry more than one wound. And there's also a core wound that we carry. And that core wound basically is whatever wound is impacting us the most right now in our lives. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's the one you started with, the day that you were born, but it might have been as time went on, you just developed this particular wound because of all of your negative and or difficult traumatic experiences, right, that you've had over time. So what I do is I help women to understand what is their core wound. What is impacting me right now? How is that showing up in my day-to-day life? How are these different sub-personalities or parts of me that show up as perfectionism, as overachieving, as people-pleasing, as criticism, as having to get everything right and having to be in control and all the things, and all the ways that we push ourselves in that direction.
Right. And all the ways that these personality tests keep reminding us of our wounds, for sure.
Exactly. And then sometimes it can just further perpetuate that shame response too, because it's like, oh no, well, I shouldn't be this way and I shouldn't be that way. And now I'm working too hard and now I'm burnt out and now there's something wrong with me. So, it just, sometimes we just get into this spiral, right? And then it can feel like there's no way out, and it can impact our health, right? It impacts our well-being. I know a lot of women that, not just through the burnout process, but just would end up having tons of health issues showing up as a result of pushing themselves and trying to be a certain way in the world that wasn't authentic to who they really are, but not being able to step into that authenticity because of all of the wounding, right, that was keeping them from doing so. So yeah, that's the big piece. That is, I would say, the big overview of what I do and how I help. And then there's the nuances, which bring in more of a spirituality perspective. And this is where I bring in this kind of higher level view of, well, where are we on our spiritual awakening journey? And what I mean by that is, where are we as we're awakening to who we really are? So I have this book, on, as you have already shared a bit about, but it's called Unmask Your Soul, to unmask these layers of who we're not, right? Like these different parts spoken about. Yeah. To get down to who are we really underneath all of that. So that's where we're at right now, and helping, women especially to step into that understanding of who they are.
So, Amie, tell us what brought this work on. I mean, were you like a teenager one day thinking, I'm going to be a trauma therapist? Or was it through an evolution of experiences? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So I go into my book too. So I'm glad you asked about this. I would say it was an accumulation of my own trauma that had happened in childhood. And over time, as a child, moving into teenage years, eventually at some point in my teenage years, I developed OCD and I had panic attacks left and right. I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't name it. I felt shame around it. I didn't what was wrong with me. Nobody was speaking about it. So I ran away from myself. I just kept, suppressing and moving away from it. And it wasn't until my early 20s, which I feel like a lot of us get to, we're like, oh, we've got stuff to work on. By like my 20s, I realized I need to do some work, some therapy work. And started that journey, began mindfulness training, and discovered through the process I'd always been very spiritually inclined. So I was already doing coaching work and helping people through, their own challenges by my mid-20s. But at that point, I was still learning, still discovering what I wanted to do and how I wanted to show up in the world and make an impact. So it wasn't until I think I had to go through several different, college programs to discover what am I here to do? What am I actually meant to bring forth? And then I realized, you know what? I really want to help people heal at the deepest possible level. And that's what led me to a psychology program, and then moved into, getting my graduate degree through a small psychology school that's very holistic. And it just all unfolded from there. And I realized I just want to help people heal the wounding that I knew that I had to contact within myself too and heal, and not feel so alone, because I think that's what really drew me to it, because I felt so alone growing up. I know that we all kind of feel that way to some extent, of like, am I the only one going through this right now? And we get into that comparison trap. Well, so I just discovered over time, this is the right path for me. And now I've, had my own psychotherapy practice for almost 10 years and love it. Absolutely love it. I enjoy working with clients one-to-one and helping them discover who they really are. I think that's really the root of it. who they are beyond.
Yeah, I love that this journey really, that is like the hardest question. What do you
Yes.
really want? What am I here to do? Like, I think we probably start asking that question pretty early on in life, right? Like
Yes.
teenagers and
Oh, right.
teenage years in that
Yes.
space, but a lot is driven by our hormones. And
Yes.
so then I'm in my midlife and it's a whole new
Yes.
question. It's a whole
Oh,
different space. And
yeah.
mind you, the last 10 years in this healing space. So,
Yes.
and it's here's where I want to ask because I think a lot of women today,
Yes.
there's so much more open conversation about trauma, about healing, and it's more not behind closed doors, right? It's
Exactly.
more sort of like cafe conversations and dinner conversations. But you took it the next step and wrote a book because here's what I know about book writing.
Yes.
Because I've written one. I've written a chapter, and that's how we know each other is through our publisher.
Oh, great.
So when you're writing, there's a real personal, vulnerable space for you also, right? So
Oh,
like
yeah.
what you're talking about is things
Oh,
that
yeah.
you have in your practice and what you know on a logical academic level. What
Yes.
was it like for you to want to write this book and sort of unearth your own emotional journey that because
Yeah.
that's where we all can relate. Like there's a lot of
Yes.
learning things out there. But what
Oh,
makes
yeah.
us pick up the book is that we can hear and feel the author in it. What was that like for you?
Yeah. Oh, that's a big one. I'm so glad you asked that question, though. Yeah, that has been the hardest. I'm going to be totally honest with you. The hardest part of the journey is writing this book. First, I had this idea. I'm going to write this book. I've got this, right? This is great. This is,
Yeah.
it's an accumulation of all I've learned, my experience with clients and my own personal experience kind of interwoven all together, right? And I thought, oh, this is going to be great. So I start writing, and I get going on it. And eventually I sent it over to, and we share the same publisher. So I sent it over to our publisher and I said, what do you think? And she said, well, it's good, but let's get more of you in there. And I said, there's lots of me in there, actually. She's like, oh, well, and I was like, okay, I'll take a good hard look at this, and I actually sat down with it and I said, yeah, yes, I'm being too therapist minded, Amie, right now, and not sharing from my heart. And I had to contact that shame wound within me while I was writing the book and acknowledging there's more layers here. There's more layers to unpack and to love and to heal through. So as I'm writing it, all the wounding is stirring up and I'm recognizing I got to sit with some of this and the retelling of my stories and how I connected that to my clients' experiences. It was just such an emotional journey. And beyond even the writing of the book, I had to go through a next level awakening experience. I'll call it a dark night of the soul, where I had to contact a deeper part of myself through this and this is where I am now. I'm coming to the other side of it now. So it's beautiful. Now I can actually talk about it. But through the process of writing the book, it took 5 years in total. I got to a place where I recognize I'm not the same person who started this book. I realized so much love started to come through me, like flowing love toward myself, toward others, toward my inner child. I was in shock by how much was starting to flow. But first, it was very painful. I had a health condition resurface during the writing of the book, and I thought it was done with that. I thought I had healed that. And I talk about this in the book too, about the health concerns that I had gone through. And everything had just started to stir right back up again. And it was like, and I kid you not, I was reliving all the trauma stories from my book, and I had to relive them all over again. Like life just gave them all back to me. I was in shock. I was like, no, I've done this. We're good now, but that's not what life decided to give and to share as it is a gift. Absolutely. Now I can see that. But in the moment, in the darkness of it, it's like, why am I going through something that I already went through that I thought I had and that I'm writing about? And then eventually this like big surge came through. And that's because it was the right portal for my next level awakening to become the next beat. And I didn't know it. I thought I was ready for the book launch. I thought I was ready for the storytelling, the vulnerability, but now I'm just this I feel so raw and tender these days, just in sharing this true space of my heart, which is that it's just human. It's human for us to go through these experiences.
See, that's the piece.
Yeah.
I think that's the piece as I think the world itself is going through this shift
Mhm.
that everybody's
Oh
been
yeah.
using that language shift where
Language.
we hear from experts like you who have done the work, who've got all the letters next to their name, who's done,
Right. Yeah.
writing the book, which is a huge
Yeah.
feat. But we
Right.
also need to know that you understand the pain that we're reading about, because I
Yeah.
think that's the
That's
part
it.
that, like, what makes some books really relatable and some books sort of like, yeah, I already know, right? And I think we went through the phase of
Yeah.
human existence where we know what we're told. We
Exactly.
get it. You said something really beautiful. You said the awakening. First you said you were running away from yourself, and
Yeah.
then this book came out, and then it's this reawakening. So tell us a little bit about that, because that's everybody's been through. Coaching
Yes.
is a big space right now. Therapy, mental health. We talk
Yeah.
about self-care a lot. We
Right.
assume, like me, I'm the me I'm talking about is like, okay, we've done it once. We know it. We
Uh-huh.
nailed it. I don't love myself enough. But what I am realizing that you said it so beautifully is that
Uh,
it's not like you're reopening or rediscovering a pain, but it's
yes.
so real, it comes back. So how do you us through? Pretend I'm a client right now, and then I'm a there, and it's happening. The wound is reopening. Like, what's the purpose of this thing reopening, and why do I have to go through it again? And do we go through it more than once, or what's the deal?
I'm so glad that you brought that up. Thank you for mirroring that too, about the personal experience and how people want something real now, right? They don't just want a professional sending that, sharing a book without some real, raw, vulnerable material, because it's like,
Yeah.
I need to know that you get me, right? I need to know that you understand
Yes.
me. And so where you're coming from, if we were to imagine that you are a client and you're saying, I've already done this. And it's interesting. I just had a client recently say something very similar to me and said, I'm stuck in a cycle. I've gone through this, and it was in the realm of relationships. And it was like, I'm constantly getting stuck in the same relationship situations, different people, same situation, right? So it's like constant. And so in our conversation, I was really feeling with her, because I 100% know what it's like to feel like you've healed something only to come up against it again, and in such a visceral way that you cannot escape it. That the universe says this is your journey, whether you like it or not, right? It feels very karmic. And so what I shared with her was, first and foremost, you're not alone in this. Second, the big piece here is that if we think about the journey of being human, this is my take on it anyway, that we're all learning what love truly is, and how to, and not just, this conditional love, but an unconditional love, or what's called agape sometimes too. It's divine love. And really, we're learning it one step at a time. And we can't unpack all of our wounding at one time, right? We just can't do that. That's too overwhelming, right? And to imagine, going through, and I can share a little of what I went through in the past, which was it was a near-death experience quite a while ago. And this was due to a health situation that had occurred. And I thought at that time I was going to die. And I didn't know if I was going to live. I didn't know if I was going to continue on. And I thought by the end of it, it took years to heal this health condition, and I was finally able on the other side. Fast forward exactly 10 years later, the health problem resurfaces. And I'm saying exactly 10 years later, to the dot. And I thought, well, this is really fascinating. Now I think it's fascinating. At the time, I was not fascinated. I was very, very angry. And hurt and scared and terrified, truthfully, because like, wait a second, this is what's happening right now, right? Am I backtracking? And this is how my clients feel. This is how everybody feels, right? We go through these processes, and then we think we're just on the other side, and then we're not quite there. And the reason that is I think we have to come up against the things that our body and our spirit knows are going to challenge us to our core, so that we will look at the stuff that we just won't look at if we are not constantly having it in our face almost, right? So that's why we have the karmic stuff or the karmic health stuff. Because if we don't, we're just going to keep living our same patterns. And for me, it's like, I love myself. This is where I was at the beginning, coming back to your point. I love myself. I'm writing this book. I've got this. I have so much love for myself. But then I realized, whoa, there was a lot of parts of me that needed love that were exiled out of my inner system that I didn't even know were there. How would I have known without this health situation resurfacing? I never would have known. So it became a gift. It became a gift.
Wow.
I like to think of it in layers, our healing. So the whys around it, I feel, are that there's a readiness that happens at certain points of our spiritual and emotional journey. And, 10 years ago, I was ready for, unearthing and unlayering some of that. 10 years later, now I'm ready to unlayer, the other. And so that's where I'm at now, is like I've unlayered that, I've unpacked that. Ooh, that was a lot, I gotta tell you. So I'm sitting with it now in this acknowledgement that I've come such a long way, but there's always going to be that next layer. So I like to say, we're not looking for perfection, right, around healing our wounding and saying, oh, I will never experience shame again. That's not what we're saying here. But the idea is that as we're healing our core wounds, we're contacting this place within us that basically is growing that sense of higher self-awareness. We want to think about it that way. So it's like you're growing who you really are, your true self, which carries qualities of love and peace and joy and courage and all these beautiful things. And that's growing every time you heal a wound, you get bigger. Who you are gets bigger, the wound gets smaller, right? So every time, for instance,
That's good.
Yeah, when my client said, why do I keep coming up against this? And I said, so you can become the highest version of yourself. And you have to do that. And that wound has to grow, or rather it has to shrink, and you have to grow. And you're not going to do that in one swoop, right? You're going to do it in, one step at a time. That's all we can do. The human journey. Yeah.
I love what you just said because this is, I subscribe to the everything happens at the right time, all the conversations, it's just divinely always orchestrated to show up the way that it's supposed to show up.
Yeah.
And you just said something really magical that I think needs to have more conversation around is healing is not perfection. There is no perfect journey of
Nope.
healing. Healing is healing per person, right? And I love how you describe because I think, one time I was going for a walk with a girlfriend and we had signed up for everything under the sun, right? We're like, we've done every personal development, we've stepped on the hot coals, we've done it all. We've tried to get over our fear of the whole. Why was life still beating us up? Like, what is the deal? And she said, I never forget it. She said, if I knew it was going to still be this hard, I might have not have started, because sometimes it's better to be in the bliss of not knowing. But
That's
you said something amazing is that we don't escape it no matter what, right?
It's when you start showing up. That's a beautiful way that you just described it. Like when you say, I'm going to face this, I'm going to look at this, like in one step at a time, right? You're going to look at the books, right? You're going to try new things. You're going to face your fears. As soon as you say that, the universe says yes. And then it's like, and then you're like, okay, well, I wish I was back there where I was naive about, and at the same time, it's like, you're still the grander version of yourself regardless. So there's that too, right? It's almost both. It's both and, right? Whew, gosh, I wish I didn't go on such an intense journey because it's painful. And look who I am now. Look who I've become, right? At the same time.
There's that too. Thank you for bringing that up because so I kind of want to go back to something you said too is that when we are in this, unraveling of ourselves, the point of it is that we are exercising the growth of ourselves to the higher level and making our wounds smaller. So tell us a little bit about how we can, okay, maybe it's not wrapping our heads because what I've learned about healing is we think we can think it through, but it doesn't work. So how do we do that? How do we go from here to here? Like how do we and know that the growth is there? Give us a little bit of wisdom today on that.
Absolutely. Well, I have this, I have a pathway back to love process I teach, and this is in the book as well. And it's a way of making space for what's already here and becoming present to what's already here. And you can do this in any context too, even without this pathway back to love process. But my sense is, and this is so simple, yet so complex, because we're working with wounding, we're working with parts, and we're working with patterns of behavior, which are all connected. So when we think about our mind, we're often head people, aren't we? We often think too much. Like I'm with you. I'm a Gemini too. So like my brain will go all day long. And I'm intellectualizing things constantly. So what I find, and this is probably why I landed in the meditation mindfulness sector of things, I find that when we just maintain a sense of presence, and yes, that means having a mindfulness practice. Yes, that means having a meditation practice. Those two are not necessarily the same thing. You can be mindful each day and focused and really in tune with what you're doing. And then you can have a mindfulness meditation practice in addition to that. So my sense is that we're just too identified with our thinking. We're too much in our head. We are just not even aware of what's going on around us half the time because we're up here and everything becomes this kind of ego filter of what we see in our miniature world that we live in and how everything is being filtered out through that, right? So that we're not able to access the heart center because we're so heady. We're too much up here. So what I like to share to people or share with people is find your grounding. Find presence. That's a big piece. And maybe it's spring right now at the time that we're recording this. So maybe it's getting outside and placing your feet in the ground and just taking a few deep breaths. It doesn't have to mean, gosh, I have to start a 30-minute meditation practice, although that's fantastic, go for it. But I would say what is so important is just land in the present. What does my body feel like right now in the seat? What does it feel like to have the air on my skin? What is it like to be in the space I'm in and hear the sounds that are coming in the window, for instance, right? So it's just making contact with the now. If we can do that, then the mind stuff starts to settle down. We don't have to stop thoughts. It's not at all our goal or what we're trying to do, but to settle down the identification with our thoughts is key. And then deep breathing is a beautiful practice, or sometimes what I'll do is one of my favorite practices, in addition to that pathway back to love, is loving kindness practice, which is leaning in, and this is my daily practice right now, and that's sending love first to all parts of me. May all parts of me be safe, loved, happy, at peace. And then I expand it out to those who are in my direct environment, to neighbors, friends, family, that type of thing. And then I expand it out to people I don't know, to all beings on the planet. And it has just exponentially opened my heart in so many ways. So now what I do when I'm out in public, I just sit there, people watching a little bit, and I'll just send love to random people who are walking by. I don't say this out loud. They don't know I'm doing it because I imagine they'll be thinking, oh my gosh, what is she doing right now? Maybe they would love it. I don't know. But I, send love to each person because I want to live from here. I want to be in the heart because that's where the spirit lives. It doesn't live up here. This is the processor, right? This just processes. Our head processes things, but it's not who we are. It's not, where we need to live. So that's where I like to live. And it does take a concerted effort at first, but now it's not effort. Now it's just like, may that person be happy. That person's randomly walking in the grocery store. May that person find peace. And there's just this true unity connection I find with other human beings coming from that place of love that I've never felt before. And without this coming back to that experience, that awakening that I shared, I would not be doing this. I'd just be head down, thinking about my journey, and thinking about how am I going to get the book out to all these people and trying so hard, to make it. And now I just feel like a flow, like a heart flow, if that makes sense, and just a trust, like a natural trust that everything's going to come together that I really did not feel before this. So power of core wound healing right there is, it's huge. Yeah.
What's interesting is you are is it called licensed or are you a licensed therapist? Is that what it is? Okay. You're certified, you've done all the education, that process of how psychology works and you have the letters behind it. But it's fascinating that you're bringing in the spirituality to
Yeah.
it. So that's
Right.
something that I don't think has been normalized forever. It's a newer thing. So it's interesting. I was watching this show called The Alienist, which I didn't know what it was. I thought it was about aliens, but really it was the beginning of psychology in the early 1800s, like how
Neat.
psychology, because I didn't know this, but I
Right.
didn't realize that psychology was not considered a medical practice for a long time.
Yes. True. It's true.
And
Yeah.
even just in the
Yeah.
most recent, I read a book called The Body Keeps Score, and I didn't
Ooh.
realize that that was written
Yeah.
by a gentleman who kind of is the founder of the way we diagnose psychosis nowadays. And I was like, and he said, so I'm piecing it together because I'm thinking there's this whole science base to it, right? And there's all of these intellectual spaces that psychology has been growing and become a
Right.
part of. I mean, the whole entire theme of Sopranos, which was a number one blockbusting show, was a mobster seeing a psychologist, right? Which was
Right.
supposed to
Yeah.
be unheard of. But now you're taking it to the next level of now why is that important? Why do we take something so intellectualized and
Yes.
very academic and then mold it with this thing called spirituality, which people
Mm.
assume is very woo.
Yeah. Exactly.
Why is that important? Why do you think that we need that today?
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah.
me about that.
Oh, I love that. I love that question. Because, and this is on one end, just because of my experience. Let's see what you think about this. But my experience is growing up, and this is just something that I just felt connected to. For some reason, my soul, my spirit wanted to learn more, wanted to grow from this perspective, and knew that it was woo-woo and felt kind of out of place a bit too, growing up, knowing that I had this propensity toward spiritual realization and wanting to grow and heal in that sort of way. So as I got older, I realized, okay, there is a definite distinction between the work I'm doing in the psychology field versus the spirituality work I'm doing. And here I am integrating them. What I found, and this is on one end of it, is that people are seeking that, even if they don't even know what it means. So even if they call it woo-woo. So this is like, for example, some people would come to my practice and they would call me up and say, it says that you're holistic. I just need something that, and they wouldn't have quite the words to describe their experience, but they would say, I just know that I've tried all these other psychotherapy methods. I've done these things and I'm just not like, something's not moving. Like it's not shifting. I'm not healing. I feel like there's something inside of me. And then they would try to use the words of like, I don't really get it. Like it's not getting to the depth or the core of what I need. And so then I would start to talk in this framework of spirituality. And I would say, and this is what I love about internal family systems, actually, which is a type of therapy that does incorporate more of the spiritual because they talk about a self with a capital S. And so I felt like that was a nice bridge for people who might not have that link for spirituality. And I would say, well, there's a you in there that is not the parts of you. So you've got a part of you that shows up every day and says, I've got work to do. You've got a part of you that says, I got to pick up the kids from school, right? You've got a part of you that says, I got to, think about what I'm going to eat for dinner. You've got all these different parts of you every day showing up. And then the more intense ones and the really emotional ones and all the ones that we stuff away, that's not you. They're just parts of you that have been showing up from a very young age because you had been through some sort of trauma, some sort of painful experience. And so they're trying to protect you from that wounding. And then I would describe that there's a self with a capital S. This would be my bridge conversation that is in there. I still call it spirit soul. When I talk to people who are more on the end of it where, they've had experiences spiritually and want to talk about it in that framework. But for those who haven't had that experience, I'll say, there's a S, capital S inside. There's a you in there that is beyond, bigger, more expansive than any of that. And, they would say, oh, okay, yeah. And they would recognize and they would acknowledge, even in the depth of their suffering, that they had contacted that at some point in their lives, whether it was experiencing a courageous moment, whether it was having a deep sense of peace, whether it was, the birth of their child and having that love that they felt at that moment, right? Or the love of their pets or whatever that was in that moment. They could contact a moment in time, at least in their life, where they had felt that self with a capital S, which carries those qualities. And so that was the bridge in a way to help them to see that what we're doing, because that's the work I do also, is we're unmasking who you're not, regardless of what we want to call it, whether it feels woo-woo or spiritual. But what it comes down to is most people I've uncovered feel that there's something bigger, something deeper once they've set forth on this journey of healing from a psychological perspective and feel that they want all of it. Right now they're ready, big step, right? So that's the beauty. But I appreciate you asking that question because I've never actually pulled it together in this way in my mind to make sense of it. I just thought, well, this is just how I talk about it, because it's easy for everyone to understand.
Well, and plus it's your arena of expertise. And I think there's so many of us out there who are scouring the jungles of social media to make sense of it, to make sense of what's this thing happening in us. And especially again, in this midlife era, I read a book that calls it the transformational journey of the soul, the soul's transformational journey. Basically,
Lovely.
midlife is it's like we have a lot of transformational journeys, but this one's the big one, right? Because you're really leaving one life that you've been living into a life you're not certain with. And I think that's where we are all looking for an answer or meaning or purpose. So it used to be called purpose, right? But I think what we're mistaking for purpose is that the soul, the searching for who we've always been. Like you said it so beautifully, version of you in there, right? There's all these little parts of us because we're always trying to make sense of it. Like, well, how come it's this? And how come it's this? And why do I still do that? And why? It's like the wounding thing. And I have taken so many notes. It's like note taking over here because I am so curious about what you said. Is you said something about mindfulness and presence that really resonated in my brain of like, what if I take the word focus, which is a very driven at, like intellectual, logical space.
Got it.
Instead of being focused, use the word mindfulness because it's the same thing. Being mindful is being focused, what it sounds like. And took ambition, which because I always, as I'm healing, I'm like, you know what? There was this time where I was beating myself. I'm like, gosh, why am I so driven still? Like, chill out. You're feeling, just calm down. Stop being. But then I was like, but then I'm not being true to who I am because I'm naturally built for ambition and I like it. I enjoy it. So it wasn't, I'm not like, okay, that's kind of stunting my own growth. But then you said a word, what if I used present instead of ambition? Because when my ambition is in the presence, is in the moment, is in the now, and you just really created a whole new vocabulary for me.
Good. I love that.
Let's go there, and then as we get closer to the end, I will ask a question I ask everybody. But let's talk about how you help and how you've helped yourself and how you help clients and people who are listening. Is it that we need to refocus our perception or maybe change our perspective on things? Or is it that we are just switching like what I just did with the light bulbs of like, oh, I'm here, like, stop being so not focused. You've always been so focused, but what if I just change it into mindfulness? Like, which direction do you think is the better way for us to accept our healing journey versus beating ourselves up of like, I can't believe I haven't figured it out yet. Why am I still here?
Yes, exactly. Well, I think you're doing this beautifully, actually, in real time, right? And this is great because you're looking at it and saying, oh, well, instead of this, you're just shifting slightly, right? You're just saying, I'm just doing a little pivot here. Because there's nothing wrong with ambition, right? There's nothing wrong with being ambitious. There's nothing wrong with making these choices. But what it comes down to is it's the way that we show up in that, right, in that experience. If you're like breathing quickly and like multitasking and moving from one thing to the next, that's going to take a toll. Not just on your body, but your brain, everything, your spirit, everything is going to be shifting through that, right? So as you mentioned, presence, it's coming back again. Deep breath. Why am I even doing this right now? What is my reason for this right now, right? Why am I doing this? Sometimes it's nice just to sit back and connect with your why. It's like, okay, the why is, I really enjoy this. This lights me up, right? You don't always have to be sitting in, is this connecting to my shame wound, right? And it may, but it's complicated. Right? It's complicated. It's probably not just a shame wound response. It might be there, but it might also be a response of, I enjoy this. There's something coming from you, from your higher self saying, this is my path. So there's a lot of different nuances here. So in the realm of the critic, when you talk about that piece and you say, when my mind is moving into shoulds, the shoulding is horrible, right? When we do that, we're essentially saying, there's something wrong with me. There's something.
The mean girl. She's like the mean girl in school, shoulding.
Yes, exactly. So we switch that to could instead. So if you just being very, aware of when we use the word should, because it's always making us wrong. We're always saying I'm wrong in some way. There's something wrong with me hidden underneath the should. So when we change it to could or would, then from there, we can start to take back our power. So you're absolutely right. We can just kind of change the nuances of the vocabulary a little here too, just to shift perspective so that when you are sitting down to start work, right, and you acknowledge, oh, I've been maybe working for 3 hours straight without a break, and I'm in ambition mode, and I'm not really listening to my body. Instead of saying, I should have, been more mindful, I should have done this, you say, okay, this is good information. And you get curious, and you say, what do I need now in this moment? And maybe it's a deep breath. Maybe it's getting outside for some fresh air, right? And then from there, you can start anew. And I like to think of just every moment, begin again. Every moment, begin again, because it's never set in stone, right? It's never set in stone. We are always in constant flux, in constant change. And we think we're the person we were 5 minutes ago, but we're not, because everything is shifting. So I like to think of it that way. When your mind says, I'm just going to beat you up all day long, and because you're this person that, I know you to be, says that critic part of you. No, it's not true, because you're not that person this critic thinks you are. That, maybe something happened when you were 12 years old or something, and now it beats you up for your whole life. So you just acknowledge that you're not that version anymore. And I think that is a big piece. That is a huge piece.
I just feel like I just had a therapy session. Thank you so much, because light bulbs keep, like, I'm taking notes, because you started it with the word flow.
Right.
Allow your life to flow with the energy of the universe. And when you said that every moment you can say begin again, I feel like that's what it means when we allow ourselves to flow down the river versus fighting it. Because when we're fighting it, we're constantly making sense of, why am I like this? Why am I so blah, 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 right? And it goes down this negative rabbit hole of crazy that we're exhausted and it's not even noon, because we've been beating ourselves up since the moment we woke up. But if we just said, like, I love how you said it, every moment begin again.
Yeah, that's it.
My therapy session. Thank you, everyone. It's time for you to go get yours and pick up the book and get a hold of Amie. Where are you? Are you virtual or are you in person? Like, how do we?
Yes, great question. So I am virtual as of this moment. So you can actually access all of everything we're talking about here at my website, amielindean.com. It's amielindean.com, and then on Instagram and on Facebook as well. Those are the 2 big places. And I've got a community called Home Within coming up here soon also, which is, so we can finally come together. I love how you mentioned at the beginning, we're starting to have these conversations more in a raw way where we can just have conversations about trauma at a coffee shop. Well, I want to do that in a space where no matter where you are in the world, we can come together. We can talk about these exact things we talked about today and more in the book, and not just talk about it, but make one-to-one connections with other women who are going through your own awakening, right? Everyone's going through their awakening, and learn where you are in that process and learn how to navigate it, but not alone. That's right, because reading a book is one thing, and then doing the work is another, and then getting support to do the work is a whole other. So
That's the thing. We gotta stop doing stuff alone, people. Like, what has that has not served us too well. So let's knock it off and get with the community that is supportive in that area. So this is my question I ask every single guest here, and your turn. So you're walking down the street, you walk into a cafe, and you see 25-year-old Amie. What would you say to her that she would actually listen to?
Oh my goodness. Love 25-year-old Amie. Thank you for bringing that up. It just, so much warmth shows up in my heart when I think about that. I would just sit down with her and just be with her for a moment and not try to fix what she's going through, not try to talk it away, not try to make it all better. But I would just sit there and say, I'm here. What do let's talk about it. Let's create this space together. What's going on for you? I'd first want to listen, right, to what she's going through, because I remember it was a lot. It was a lot of chaos, right? It was a lot of overthinking, a lot of I'm not enoughness. And so then I would sit there when she's feeling safe enough and she's feeling ready enough. I would share, you're already more than enough. There's nothing more you need to do to be who you already are. That's big. Like, I just feel it. Just like, because she's in here. She's already in here, right? We already have 25 us inside of us, right? So if we contact that part, we can all do that right now and contact that part that says, oh, I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that because, then she spent the next 10 plus years, working toward being good enough. So that would have made a big difference. It would have made a huge difference for her.
Well, 25-year-old Amie just got some healing. And Amie today is supporting our healing, and that's what's important in the world. Thank you so, so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your heart, your knowledge, your truth. Thank you. The therapy session that I received, I feel like so much better because I did not wake up feeling good today. I was feeling kind of defeated today. So
I get it.
This was divine conversation, and I'm so grateful for that.
To hear it.
And, I just want to speak to our audience right now. If this meant something to you and you heard yourself in this, please share. Please share it with somebody who needs it, or maybe somebody you don't even know needs it, but like it relates so much, or it touched you in such a way you're like, somebody else I know needs to hear this language and this conversation and this art, because that is the only way we heal the world. It's one person vibrating through every person we connect through. That's really what it is. That's how we hold each other's hands through this thing called healing. Thank you again for everything and the book. So, I could get super excited during the holidays and be like buying books and giving them away. And this could be one of them. Unmasking Our Soul, people. The title may sound scary, but what is life if there's not a little bit of fear in it, right? Scared. So unmasking your soul. That's all I'm gonna say. Unmasking. Right? Wait, did I say it right?
You got it. Unmask your soul. That's perfect. Exactly.
Unmask your soul. Right. And plus, we're supporting another human being that is really creating some ripples in the world that is important. Thank you again. Until next time, everyone. Thank you, Amie. And go out there and love each other and be good to one another. All right.
Bye. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for being with me on today's journey. If you felt something resonate, if you saw yourself in this conversation, please take a moment to subscribe. Share it with a friend who needs this space and leave a review. It helps others find us, and it's a small way you can be a part of this powerful movement. Ladies, this isn't just a podcast. It's a community, a revolution, a place where midlife women come together to embrace our hard-earned wisdom and vibrant truth. So thank you for being part of this. Remember, it's time. It's time to step into our truth. No more holding back. Midlife is ours to own, and it's only getting started. So, until next time, take a breath, honor your journey, and live with audacity, courage, and joy. This is our time, our truth, unraveled, revealed, and celebrated.